Well, once again, thanks for joining us on 7 for 12 Live. When the test match is now over, and boy, what a day we've had. England thought they could win. I thought they could win, but India were absolutely magnificent. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.
Well, the noise behind you will tell you the story of another incredible day of Test cricket. India finally seeing off England, taking all 10 wickets shortly after 5 o'clock here at the Oval. A brilliant display with the old ball by Jasprit Bumrah and Ravindra Jadeja, shrugging off any concerns that this England, or rather India side needed Ravichandran Ashwin. India go 2-1 up after a huge win over England by 157 runs as we approach the Old Trafford Test. Plenty to discuss today here on 7 for 12.
John, a fifth-day sellout at the Oval. The noise behind you there sounded electric. But unfortunately for India at lunchtime, things weren't going all their way. And a lot of people who had an outside chance of England winning this test match, at lunchtime, England were looking in not a bad place.
Hey, Harmy, so we look. This has been one of the best test matches I've ever seen in my life. It's been engrossing cricket from pretty much ball one. I mean, how many overs have we had? 450 overs. We've had 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 sessions of play. And it was only until the 14th session that we knew the destination of this test match. And the reason for that was a bit of absolute brilliance. Brilliance from Jasprit Bumrah. Look, India could well have won this test match without him, but I doubt it. There was dismissal of route by Umesh Yadav at the end of day one, which was key. Shardul Thakur, he bowled magnificently today, and he's got those 250s. We saw Siraj, we saw Jadeja, but that spell of bowling after what we'd witnessed on days 3 and 4, when England toiled for 128 overs and India racked up 446. I came here today and I thought, if England want to batten down the hatches, there's no way India can take 10 wickets in the day. And then with the old ball, when we all thought the new ball would be key, Bumrah delivered, and Jadeja meant that the camera wasn't panning up to Ashwin's face throughout the day as well. And I want to go take you back to something you said yesterday when you made mention of that little snicker that you saw on the ball. You said, maybe in days gone by, when there weren't 58 million cameras, someone would have done something to the ball. Well, they didn't need to do anything to the ball because they had Jadeja, who was bowling at one end and just throwing it in the dirt. And then Bumrah, little bit of reverse swing, bowling 90 miles an hour, took the pitch out of the equation, and India delivered the knockout blow in absolute style. What a test match we've seen here at the Oval.
Yeah, and it's a key point that Bumrah spell, because I was sitting there thinking, do you know what, 45 minutes before lunch, that might be the time for Bumrah to come in. But he'd come into play. But he's actually had an hour and a bit on his feet. Kohli, I have to say, as much as I've criticised Kohli's captaincy in the past, I think Virat Kohli had one of his best days as an India captain. Possibly of his career today, because I thought he was magnificent. His bowling changes, the reading of the game, the understanding, keeping Bumrah till after lunch, so he had 40 minutes with his feet up, and I think that was a key time. He got to lunchtime. Yes, I understand that it might have been England thinking, yes, they're still in this game. There is an outside chance England are going to go, and I'm sure he's gone up to his fast bowler and said, look, You're not going to bowl before lunch. You're going to come on after a 40-minute break, get some fuel inside you. Maybe get the legs going, a bit of a massage, but you're going to come and I want you to give me half an hour of absolute brilliance. And he didn't disappoint. Jadeja got the key wicket for me. Got it started of Hamid, who batted really, really well. And it just looked as though Hamid just lost his balance at the point of contact when he was going to go at the ball. Whether he got his foot stuck in the ground, I'm not so sure. Snuck one past him. And when the ball's reverse swinging, it is nearly impossible to come in and face 90 mile an hour like he did. It was gone back to the day when I was growing up. I grew up watching the England side, and they played a summer against Pakistan, like in '95, and Wasim and Waqar. And it was breathtaking. And when I seen that, it reminded me so much, because many times during that series in '95, England were 100 for one, read a ball, doing nothing, then all of a sudden 100 for one turned into 180 all out because of reverse swing. And this was at its best. For me, that was as good a spell of 6 overs reverse swing that you'll see. It wasn't just Yorkers, it was bouncers, and it was into length. And that is the key of bowling reverse swing anywhere in the world, but more so in England.
Wow, well, I can't add anything to that, apart from the fact that I used to watch Waqar Younis here at the Oval when I was a kid, growing up supporting Surrey. I used to set myself the task, can I follow the trajectory of the ball from the moment it left his hand to the moment it usually either destroyed the base of the stumps or the batsman's toes? I never could. Of course I couldn't. I was just a kid. I was just trying to do it. I just couldn't work out how anyone could bowl so quickly. And those memories, well, they've been added to today because I've seen a lot of cricket, Harmy. This test match, it's up there with one of the best I've ever seen. And when you consider that pitch wasn't really conducive to great cricket for a couple of days, it just says a lot about these two teams, the intensity which they went at each other, at times the fallibility of them. But one thing that comes from this is that questions were asked relentlessly of both sides. England had India where they wanted them, essentially, for large periods of this test match. But every time they asked India a question, India had the answer. And I think India need to take a hell of a lot of credit for that.
No, I'm 100%. And I look at this India side now, and we made mention of the strength and depth that India have got, sending a team to Sri Lanka and sending a team to England. And, it was a team of IPL All-Stars went to Sri Lanka, and England, a team that came over and played in the World Test Championship, as well as play against England in 5 test matches. So the bench strength is up there. They've got a big pool of players. But for me, it comes down to the handle of pressure. The Indian cricket team and the individuals that play in the Indian cricket team play under so much pressure every single time they take the field, whether it's for RCB, whether it's for Sunrisers, whether it's for KKR, or whether it's for India, red or white ball. And when you get that, you mentally get to a state where you can handle the pressure. And when you play a test match over 5 days, the one thing that will always happen is you can say mental disintegration when it comes to verbal. Mental disintegration comes from tiredness, and it also comes from the longer format back end. And can you execute your skills when you are mentally tired? And that for me was the difference in this game. Yeah, England didn't really have the will to go back to, because mentally and physically they were tired.
But do you know what? India, I do disagree a little bit. I disagree a little bit with that, because I think England did come back. They were 82 for 5 in the first innings. And they came. No,
I'm talking about the tiredness at the end of a test match. I'm not talking about at the start. I'm talking about the tiredness at the end. It's like when you play against the great Australia side that I was fortunate to play against, and we beat in 2005. It was, can you hang with Australia?
Yeah,
and you could hang with Australia for 3.5 days, 4 days.
Yeah.
Because they were mentally strong, because they were physically there were skill sets were so advanced of anybody else around the world. When they got to a position where other teams were making mistakes, their skill sets came out and came to the fore. And I think this India side is going the same way. Yes, they've got fallibilities in the middle order, and I think that needs addressing. But when it comes to throwing punches back and forward, comes down to the last round. Well, if you're mentally tired and you just drop your guard a little bit, boom, they get you. And that's what India have done in this test match for me.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why this has been a really good series and it was a brilliant test match, because these are two experienced Test sides. See a lot of cricket, cricket in this country and around the world. And when one team gets on top, they think they've won the match. And when the team comes back again, they find it very difficult to come back again. And England very often will be playing teams like Pakistan or West Indies or whoever here in England, and England will be behind the game. The visiting team, because they don't have that muscle memory of Test cricket, think, oh, we've won the game here. England know that if they just get through the hard times, go back to basics, continue doing what they know that they can do, very often they'll come out the other side, they'll win the Test match. What has set this series apart is that both teams know that. So for 4.5 days, both teams were trying to do the same thing. But in the end, yes, it probably was a little bit of tiredness within the England ranks, but it was also an Indian team that knew if they just kept going, one of their star players will come out with the goods. It might not have happened in the way we thought it would yesterday, but that's what happened. It was absolutely phenomenal. Let's look at the day as well. That first session, you talk about the pressure. There was so much on that first session. And really, by lunch, an England win had been moved too far out of the equation because they'd only lost 2 wickets, which wasn't too bad, but they'd only scored those 54 runs. The new ball was going to be an option at some point. But they were still in the match. But the thing that I took from that first session was that they were quite lucky. England had 2 huge slices of luck. And the reason for that was the drop catch from Hamid from Siraj at mid-on. And there was also a very marginal LBW decision that didn't go India's way, but could have done on another occasion. And I just thought, you know what? England haven't scored enough runs. They have still lost 2 wickets and the luck has gone their way. So what happens when the luck doesn't go their way? And the reason that I thought that was because the pressure that India had put on their batsmen today had been lacking last night. I didn't really see that intensity. I didn't see the angles. I didn't really see the attack today. That first session, I know we'll talk about the middle session for many, many years, but actually the signs were set in that first session. The way Jadeja immediately was bowling better than he did last night. The fact that Bumrah as well, he was rested, as you say, but India's attack and the fact that they restricted England to just those 54 runs, they were absolutely bang on it this morning.
Yeah, they were bang on it, but I still felt at lunch England were in a good position. I still think at lunch I felt England were in a position of, well, if England was still going, even if England had scored 60 runs at tea with no wickets down, chasing 180 in the last session, I'd still back England with 8 wickets in hand in the last session. And the last session is when you make mistakes, and it's the longest session of the game, 35 overs. So I still think at lunchtime, England were in a good place. Joe Root still came out first ball of the middle session. He reversed Jadeja for 4. He could have done without the Milan run out, and I think a lot
that
of
was the pressure though. That was the pressure.
Yeah, a lot of the momentum
shift.
shift. Yeah, a lot of the momentum shift was built up pressure. Hamid tried to take one. I thought Milan, yes, Hamid was at fault because it was his call and it was his run. But I thought Milan was on his heels, possibly distracted by the bowler. And that was the snowball to go in. Because even though India did bowl well and it did hit some good areas and they were building up some pressure, I still think England looked quite comfortable until David Milan got run out. So, look, I think England's game plan was just get us to lunch, limited damage, and then we'll sort of move the scoring rate on throughout that day. And once Jasprit Bumrah got the ball to move off the straight and got the ball to reverse swing, then not only was it going to be difficult for England to sort of get anywhere near the total that they needed, but it was also going to be difficult to survive because he took the pitch out of the equation. The minute he took the pitch out of the equation, they were dangerous because Jadeja was the only one on the pitch from a bowling point of view that was attacking, and that was a threat. Everybody else really looked redundant, apart from Bumrah through the air and Jadeja out the footholes.
Which is what we said yesterday, in fairness. Rohit Sharma, man of the match, player of the match. There was a great debate on Sky about whether it should actually go to Thakur or even Bumrah. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think Bumrah could have had it because he was a defining it was a little cameo, but that changed the game for me. That won the game for India, because England actually up until that position were looking quite good and quite resolute. Thakur, what's he got? He got 117 runs, and he only in the CR he only got 3 wickets. He got Pope on 81 when his team needed him. Burns on 50 when his team needed him, and he knocked Joe Root over on the last day. They're match-winning combinations, but we all know it's a batsman's game. So Rohit Sharma was always going to get man of the match. But I think if I was looking to give a medal to anybody, I think it would be the collective unit of India, because I think every single one of these players stood up and made a great team effort. Very well led by Virat Kohli. It's a great team effort to win the Test match.
I hope that answers your question, Sanyak Gupta, who does say who would be your man of the match. Sharda kept India alive in the match for 14 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, look, I can see both. I think, look, that's why India have won. They've got 3 players who you're arguing about who the player of the match is. That suggests that it was a team performance, KL Rahul as well. And then there was a lot of individual efforts that maybe won't get mentioned in dispatches. But I can understand, India were 100 behind on first innings. And Rohit Sharma came out with KL Rahul, where really England had nothing to lose, and they saw India through to stumps. And also you've got to go with a bit of the aesthetics, didn't you? I mean, he went to 6, he went to 100 with a 6. So I can see it. But look, get your questions in to 7 for 12. Kanaf Bansal says, do you think this victory was even more special than the Lord's win? And thank you to Harmy for creating the channel. Still remember that bouncer to Michael to win the second Ashes Test, talking about 2005, of course. Yeah, so which one is more special, do you think, for Virat Kohli? Winning here at the Oval in South London or at Lord's in North London?
Now, this one for me. This one all day long, because the simple fact everybody was involved. England made the whole running of Lord's, apart from that one mad hour when Shami and Bumrah got the runs on the board to give India a chance to sort of declare early and go at England. But for me, this was an all-round team performance. And when you all-round team performances, they're the ones that are more special, because one man hasn't won the game. One man's bit of brilliance hasn't won the game. You could say there was 7 or 8 of these guys stood up and really made big contributions in the game. And the rest, yes, they might not have been wholly in the game, but they were ably backed up. I thought this was a great team performance, and this will go down. And when you're talking about, and you mentioned about the Ashes and the second Test match, that was probably one of the greatest Test matches ever going. But I think in India's terms, in 10 years' time, we'll still be talking about this Test match. In 20 years' time, I still think you'll be talking about the Oval in 2021, when India got themselves in a position to win the series by going 2-1 up.
Yeah, great question there, Ken. I'll get your questions into 7 for 12. As Piyodusha Shankar says, Harmy, is Old Trafford a 2-spinner pitch? Should Ashwin play? Is that question again, isn't it? We all want to see Ashwin. Look, I was listening to Michael Atherton saying that Old Trafford has been a little bit turny this year, albeit obviously in county games. So, I mean, it's a fascinating debate, fascinating discussion. Do India go in with 2 spinners at Old Trafford? I think Siraj looked like he could do a little bit of a rest after this Test match. So maybe Ashwin for Siraj. I mean, but then if Shami's fit, does he come back in for Yadav? Maybe there, and also there's the batting of Rahane. Maybe we see Bahari or Surya Kumar come in as well. But anyway, answer the question. Do you think Old Trafford is a 2-spinner pitch?
I actually think England might play 2 spinners. I don't think they have any choice. I don't think they've got any. They might not have any seamers with legs left to go and play. And they might have to go down the route of playing Jack Leach as well, and play on a wicket which is a county wicket, not the Test wicket. So, look, we've been saying for 4 Test matches. I still think if Ravi Chandra Ashwin had played in all 4 Test matches, I don't think he would have devalued this side. He can't. He's number 2 bowler in the world. Virat's got a formula, but I agree. I think Siraj looks as though he needs a break. I thought Umesh Yadav bowled really well, but I'd look at Umesh and go, yeah, today he looked as though he was struggling to get to any sort of intensity into the crease. for him to go again, is that an ask? And do you sort of stick with, or Shami comes back in for Umesh Yadav, and then Ravi Chandrashwan plays for Mohammad Siraj, and you play two seamers, Thakur, and you strengthen the batting as well. You're 2-1 up. I just think that is not a negative tactic. That's an actual positive tactic, because I think England might have to go down the same route. Because can Overton got a bang on the arm? Can Robinson play 5 Test matches in 6 weeks in the sort of infancy of his career? Jimmy Anderson's played 167 Test matches. He's 39-year-old, and we're going to have to ask him, as Jimmy will play. We're going to have to ask him to go back to the well again to play 5 Test matches in 6.5 weeks. I think that's a huge ask for England. Wood comes back in, and unfortunately, Saqib Mahmood got injured. So I think England might be forced into going with Jack Leach in the Old Trafford Test match.
Wow. I mean, what a story that could be. One thing I will just throw into the mix, Harmy, the weather forecast for Manchester, Kel Surprise in September is for a bit of rain. So maybe that will come into the equation as well. Arslan Ahmed says, afternoon, John and Steve, just back from work now, dejected. We threw the game away in first innings. I think, where do we go from here? Because English batting failed. It's a good point. England had India where they wanted them. They bowled them out for 191. They were 220 off for 6. I mean, when you bowl a team out for 191 here at the Oval, you've got to get a lead of around 150, 200. I think Joe Root said something similar at the post-match presser. England will have real regrets. They'll regret that. They'll regret the fact that possibly they picked in Overton the wrong bowler. But they'll also regret the fact that their fielding let them down again.
Yeah, and the question is a great question. It's not just a question as in, the batting let them down. Up until Thakur came out to bat, India shouldn't have gotten 150. They got an extra 40 runs than they should have got. And then, like you say, 220 for 6 with the lead that they had. Whether it was complacency, England thinking, right, we've got enough of a lead now on a surface which is doing a bit, but actually the surface got better and better as it went on, nullified the seamers. And England should have got a score of in excess of 350 and more. And that, from a psychological point of view, is completely different to a 99-run lead. If you've got a 180-run lead, when you bowl a team out, and when I say 180-run lead, you bowl a team out for 191. You should be getting in excess of 350, because no matter what anybody says, whether it was doing a bit first morning or not, England picked the team for that first morning. They didn't pick a team for the 5 days. They picked the team for that first morning, in my opinion, for that sort of surface. And if they bowled them out for 150, then it was fully justified. But then not to kick on, and after missing the boat on the bowling bit, to miss the boat again on the batting department, especially when what happened at Lords of under pressure in 4th innings. England were always going to be, even though they got a 99-run lead, pressure a situation of 4th innings was always going to come back to haunt England, I thought.
Sanyik says, do you think England will make any changes to Old Trafford? There is, of course.
I have to.
Jos Buttler. What's going to happen with him? Pope's just scored 81 in first innings. Are they really going to drop Bairstow? Is Buttler going to come back? And then with the bowling, I mean, you could make a case that Robinson shouldn't play because he's just been worked into the ground. Anderson shouldn't play because, same reason. Chris Woke shouldn't play because he hasn't played a test in a year and now he's just bowled 50 overs. Ali shouldn't play because England need a proper spinner. And that's even before you get to the headache that is, does Buttler come in? And if he does, who does he come in for?
Problem you've just named 5 players who potentially could do with either coming out of the team or a rest and everything that goes with it. We haven't got 5 players to put in. I think
Overton.
India's bench strength. India's bench strength for me is so good that they've got people desperate to get into this team. I think the amount of players that want to come into the Indian team, we've got them injured or out for other reasons. I look at this side and I think why I think they might go down the 2 spinner route. Will Buttler come back in? I personally wouldn't, but England will. And I think England will leave Bairstow out. I think England would. I wouldn't, but I think they will. I think this management unit likes Josh Butler, and they want Josh Butler in the side. They think they're what he gives, the all-round package, he gives more. So I think England will bring Butler in. I personally would go with the status quo. I think I quite like that little balance of what we had. Mo and Ali stays in because I think we need him, and I think England might go. That's why I think England might go down the two-spinner route. I think Anderson definitely plays, and whether he needs a rest or not, I think is irrelevant. We are 2-1 down. We're going to Manchester, and I think you have to have a conversation with your bowlers, as a Joe Root and Chris Silverwood, to say, can you give me one last effort? Where's your body at? Where's your legs at? Give me an honest answer. And I think Anderson will go in the affirmative. So I think Anderson will play. And it wouldn't surprise me if Wokes plays. England might go down. If they go down with the same formula, it might just be as simple as Mark Wood comes in for Craig Overton. Possible injury doubt with the elbow. If one of them need a rest, England might look to play on a spinner friendly, and they might, because they've really got no other seamers to come in. Sam Curran looked quite innocuous in the test matches he's played so far, so they might then have to play Wood and Leach with Anderson or Robinson. If one of them can't play, England are in a mess, and that's why. Not that I wanted to leave Jimmy Anderson out or Robinson out of this test match, then I thought it would be a good thing to have Wood in this test match and one of them out because of what's going on. You can say, this was the most important test match. Yeah, it was. Didn't think you were devaluing the side. But now, with everything that's gone on this week, you've got to find a formula to go and play at Manchester. And the majority of them bowlers that you're asking to go again have played 4 test matches in a short period of time, or have played their first test match in over a year. That's why I was so irate when I was saying last week, we've got to be careful and look at what happens in Manchester. Wood now looks fresh, but he was fresh last week. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think we've just lost John. Unfortunately, we've just lost John. I think he's knocked his phone onto mute. So, look, when you look at where things go and where things are, England at this minute in time, they've got some soul searching to do. Some interesting comments from Chris Silverwood in his press conference at the end when asked about reverse swing and why it didn't reverse swing for England and it did for India. And he said he wasn't sure. Now, Chris Silverwood has been a bowling coach, being a fast bowler himself. I would expect a little bit of a better answer to that. The reason why it reverse swung, Ravinder Jadeja bowled into the rough, into the foot marks, scuffed the ball up, and they had somebody bowling 90 mile an hour, blowing England away when the ball started reversing. Remind back yesterday when I was a bit irate and having a go and why Mo and Ali didn't bowl. Well, our 2 bowlers got flogged, Anderson and Robinson, 30-odd overs, while Overton didn't bowl much, and Ali wasn't bowling into the foot marks to get the ball stuffed up. And I think that's why, if we were asked the question why it reverse swung, I think that was the difference between what England did wrong from a bowling department to get it not to reverse, and India got it to reverse absolutely brilliantly in that middle session to win the game. No, John's gone. So there's been another technical issue at the Oval. We've tried everything possible to bring you the best possible 7 for 12 live. But unfortunately, sometimes technology beats you. Thanks for joining us. We'll do a preview before the 5th and final test match. And remember, we'll be here every day after that test match. After that, the day's play of each of the last 5 days of this magnificent series. Just remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review.